In this video, we'll set up the Raspberry Pi, and we'll also establish remote connection between the Raspberry Pi and a computer, a desktop or a laptop. Search for and download Raspberry Pi software. Download the one that works for your operating system. Mine is Windows. And this is what I got. Go to Software tab, Raspberry Pi OS, and download the one that says Desktop with recommended software. And this is what I have. Yours could be different. You might have a newer version. Go and download Real VNC Viewer. And get the one that works with your operating system on your computer. And this is what I have. Get your SD to USB connector or the adapter. Get your micro SD card. Plug the micro SD card in your adapter or the connector. Plug that to your computer. Launch the imager you downloaded. You might want to run this from your admin account. Follow the installation process all the way, and at the end you might want to run the software. Click Choose OS. Scroll down to Custom. Select the zip file that you downloaded earlier. Make sure the storage is your SD card before you click Write. You will get a warning anyways. So if you choose by a mistake your hard drive, you don't proceed. You go back to storage and reselect your SD card, then click Write. You click Continue. Close the software. Now you unplug the micro SD card. Insert that into your Raspberry Pi. There is a slot at the bottom of the Pi. Insert it that way. Get your monitor or the TV, the keyboard and the mouse. Plug the HDMI cable from the monitor or the TV. Plug the mouse into the USB. Plug the keyboard to the USB. I got a power cable that has a button, but you don't have to have that specific one. And I'm plugging the micro USB plug into my Raspberry Pi. I'm gonna press the button and the Raspberry Pi is gonna power up. This is a monitor or the TV that's connected directly to the Raspberry Pi. You follow the normal installation process. It's straightforward. Click on Next. Choose the settings that are appropriate to you. Next. Enter new password and confirm it, and remember that password. Next, it's asking me if I see a black border around my window, and I do. The black border that's outside, so I'm gonna check this box and next. It's now searching for Wi-Fi networks. I'm gonna be selecting the one I wanna use at home. Next, enter the password for that specific Wi-Fi. Then next. I got a message about update software. I pressed next to proceed. Now my system is up to date. Okay. You may want to restart your Raspberry Pi. Click on the Raspberry icon. Go to Preferences, Raspberry Pi Configurations. You can change the host name or the Raspberry Pi name to anything you want. I'm gonna change this to Raspberry Pi 2 because I have more than one Pi and I want to be able to distinguish between them. It will tell you that your username is actually Pi. Go to Interface. Make sure that VNC is enabled. Click OK. It will ask you to reboot. Say yes. Go to the Raspberry icon, Preferences, Raspberry Pi Configurations. Go to Interfaces. VNC is already enabled. Hit OK. Nothing is gonna reboot now. You can do that in a different way. Go to the black symbol or the console or the command line and type in sudo space raspi-config. With the arrows on your keyboard, scroll down to Interface Options, press Enter. Scroll down to VNC, press Enter. Enter for yes. Enter for OK. VNC server is enabled already. Scroll down to finish, press Enter, exit the menu, close the dialog. Go to the black console again and type ifconfig. Take a note of the number that's going to be shown. In my case, it was 192.168.0.10. Yours will be different. It's under WLAN. I'm gonna reboot my Raspberry Pi for now. I will leave my Raspberry Pi open. On my computer, I'm gonna search for and run cmd for command prompt. And I'm gonna type ipconfig. Press enter. Write down these three numbers. This is a summary page of what I have so far. Under my Raspberry Pi, I went to command prompt and I typed ifconfig, and this is the IP address that I got. I've written it down here. And net mask, also called subnet mask, is this number, and I've written it down here as well. On my computer, I went to command prompt, I typed ipconfig, and I got my IP address, which is this one here. I've written it down here, that associated with my computer, and subnet mask should be the same one as you see in here. If they do not match, so these will not communicate. And they also have to be on the same Wi-Fi network. If they are on different network, or you see different subnet mask, they won't communicate. Another thing you will notice here, that the IP address of the Raspberry Pi and the IP address of the computer, they vary at the last digit. Subnet mask, all 255.255 all the way, and the last digit here is 0. That means the variation is in the last digit. So you're gonna see the difference between your IP address on the Raspberry Pi, IP address and on the computer is in the last digit. If that is different, it wouldn't be in the same network as other one. The last number in here is called default gateway, which is going to be also very similar to the IP addresses that you have here. Also varies in the last digit. Usually it's 0.1, 0.0, and that number is going to be very useful if you want to access and reconfigure your wireless modem or router. Although we can proceed now, but some Wi-Fi routers, they assign different IP address every time a device is connected. So today you connected the Raspberry Pi wirelessly to your home network, it get this address. Tomorrow you will power it up again, it might get a different address. We want to avoid that. I want to avoid that, so later from my computer I'm gonna say I need to connect to a device that has an IP address of a specific number, and if this number changes next time, the computer will not find the device at that given address. So I want to fix this address to that specific Raspberry Pi, and later I really don't need to plug in an HDMI to a monitor to inspect what is the new IP address here. I want to fix that all the times. In the next few minutes I'm going to be connecting to default gateway, which is this address or this address. That is to say, I'm trying to log in to my modem or my wireless router remotely, making sure that I am still on the same network, and I'm gonna type this on my web browser. This interface that's gonna be coming next is gonna be different based on your internet service provider. I'm gonna show you the example of my case, and even if you have the same internet service provider, maybe the modem will have a different interface. So look for similar functionalities that what I'm be showing you here. The whole goal is to assign a fixed IP address to this specific Raspberry Pi, and let's try to fix it to that number that I obtained first. Go to the address of the default gateway on your web browser. Log in with your credentials. You're gonna find these probably printed on your modem. I will go to the wireless options, and I want to see what is connected. I'm gonna go to access control. I'm gonna show what is available, what is being connected. These are all my connected devices, including the Raspberry Pi 2 with this specific IP address and a MAC address. I'm now switching to basic settings. I need to look for DHCP reservations. This is the one that's gonna reserve the IP address for the Raspberry Pi. I'm gonna click on that. You should see all the connected devices again, but in front of your Raspberry Pi, you'll find the same address you want to add it. Now, success means it's reserved, save changes. You might lose the connection to the modem because the modem may need to restart. All devices connected to the modem will wait for it to reboot again, including your laptop, including your Raspberry Pi. Connection is lost, no internet, it's coming back, log in again. I'm gonna go now to wireless options. Access control. When I check what is being connected, I now see all the devices that's connecting, including the Raspberry Pi, IP address, and DHCP reserved. So I now succeeded in reserving this IP address for this Raspberry Pi. So every time I turn on the Raspberry Pi at home, and if the router or this Wi-Fi is available and turned on, my Raspberry Pi is gonna connect to it and will assign itself this IP address. This is good if I wanna locate my Raspberry Pi from my computer wirelessly. You can do the same thing for your computer if you really look for your computer from your Raspberry Pi, but I won't be doing that. But if that is the case, if you want to search for your computer from your Raspberry Pi, you reserve this address for your computer. The keyword here is called DHCP reservation. So if you have a different internet provider, internet service provider, or different modem, this is a keyword that you need to look for to achieve that task. Although it's not mandatory, but will make things easier later. On your computer, go to the downloaded link for Real VNC Viewer, the one you downloaded for your operating system, which in my case was this file here. I'm gonna run this as administrator. English, next, accept the agreements, continue, next, install, done. After installation is done, I will look for VNC Viewer software on my computer. I'm gonna run it. In the address bar, I'm gonna type the IP address of my Raspberry Pi. Now it's fixed or reserved. Your username is Pi and the password you choose for your Raspberry Pi. Good idea to remember the password. Now I can see the Raspberry Pi screen on my computer screen. I can go to the Raspberry icon. I can go to the console. I can minimize it. I can move it around. I can close the screen. That doesn't turn the Pi off. This Pi is still running. I can rename the connection. I give something like the name of the Pi, maybe this Pi 2. I give it the name of the connection. I'm connecting from home. So remember later when I click on that on VNC, what would happen. I can double click again on that. If it remembers my credentials, it's gonna go back to the Pi. The Pi was still on. I'm back on the Pi. Like Windows Update, once a while you need to make sure your Raspberry Pi is up to date. Not every day though, but once a while you do go to the console, type sudo apt-get update, press enter. It will find the packages that need to be downloaded, and next you're gonna type sudo apt-get upgrade, and then you will upgrade your Raspberry Pi. If there is an update, you might be asked to press yes to confirm the process. In my case, I did this a week ago and I have no more updates at the moment. At this moment, my Raspberry Pi is still connected directly to this monitor, or actually that's an old TV, and it's here somewhere, still connected directly. I'm at the same time seeing the screen on, this is my laptop, that's extended monitor of the laptop, still part of my laptop. And I can see the same picture duplicated here and there. This is a direct connection, this is wirelessly. I can see this Raspberry Pi is connected to the modem somewhere in my room or at home, and from the modem I going through real VNC and I see the same screen as I would go directly. Now the two screens are identical. Whatever you see in one, it's going to be an exact copy of the others. Whether you have a control from the computer, you will see everything also changes on the other screen that's connected directly. If you control it from the mouse and keyboard, and the monitor that's connected directly is going to also be reflected on the computer screen. Now I don't need this extra monitor / TV. I don't need the mouse or the keyboard. I can unplug all of these. As far as the Raspberry Pi is still powered, I can see its screen from my computer and control it from there. Now you don't need any of these. You can return them if you've borrowed them from a family or friend. And these are what you need to use from now on. The Raspberry Pi, the micro SD, you can keep it plugged all the times. A cable to charge the Pi or to power it on. End of the cable will be either a wall plug or power bank or a USB charger. I'm done for today. I don't need the Raspberry Pi anymore. I'm gonna shut it down. This is the screen of the Raspberry Pi. I connected remotely. I'm gonna go and log out. Will give you options to reboot, log out, or shut down. I'm gonna shut it down at this moment. You'll find the VNC connections trying to reach the Raspberry Pi again, but I think it's safe to close that. Next time I'm gonna launch VNC software on my computer. I'm gonna try to reconnect again once it's up and running the next day or so. After you shut down the Raspberry Pi from your computer, there's still power going from the wall plug or the charger. You would wanna press the button here. If your cable comes with a button, you press the button here to break that connection, or unplug that USB or that USB to stop the power from flowing through the Raspberry Pi. And next time you wanna power it on, you simply either press the on and off button again, or make the connection, the USB and the USB, and it will power on your computer. You go to your VNC software and you're gonna see its screen projected on your computer. You now succeeded in setting up the Raspberry Pi, setting up your home Wi-Fi router, and you were able to mirror the screen of the Raspberry Pi on your computer remotely. Congratulations.